The anger at the political parties is very real. You know, people are angry at Wall Street, but they also know that Wall Street is essentially out to make a buck by whatever means necessary. The political parties are the institutions in American life that are supposed to protect the American people against excesses of things like what goes on Wall Street. And they take a look at this situation and they say, well, that didn't happen this time. Where were the parties? They weren't protecting the interests of the American people. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that 40% of the country today consider themselves independents. I think it's because they're seeing in very practical and immediate ways that the political parties, as they're organized, as they're constituted, as they're located in American political life, as having become the special interests that they are not in a position to stand up for and to represent the interests of the American people. And I think that that is not going away on Election Day. I really don't think it is. We've looked at the trends and we've been involved in them. I mean, people in our networks and the QUIP networks around the country were very active in the primary season. Many of them worked on behalf of Barack Obama and mobilized independent voters in the 33 open primary and caucus states. Independents, as we now know, were Barack Obama's advantage and ultimately his margin of victory over Hillary Clinton in the primary season. That's what got him the Democratic nomination. But I think that independents are looking at this picture and they're saying, hey, we're going to vote for the Democrats on Election Day, but don't make the mistake of thinking that that means that we've become Democrats. We're not. We're independents. You know, I said to some people recently that some in the Democratic Party look at the size of the independent vote that it looks like that they're going to be getting on Election Day, and their attitude is, we're being greeted as liberators by independents. No, that's a mistake. Independents, in my experience, and I talk to independents all over the country, feel more strongly about being political independents today than they did even a year ago. I think that the attitude that independents have towards themselves is changing, is growing, is maturing in a certain way. And I think there's a recognition that once the presidential election is over, that independents have to go back to work, and in some cases it's not even back to work because we've been doing this all along, have to continue to grow this movement on the ground from the bottom up, because this is a movement that is pointing the way for the future of the country. I think that independents have gone through a kind of self-education process and a maturation process in certain ways. I think there's a growing recognition that whereas people often become independents because they want to make an individual statement, I want to choose the best candidate, I don't want to be locked into a particular party or ideology, I want to make decisions that I think are the best for my family and my community. And that's been a big part of the growth of the independent movement. But I also think there's a change going on. I think in addition to the I side of being an independent, I think there's an increasing sense of the we side, that there is a movement, a growing movement, a cross-section of Americans who are coming to the position that we've got to get outside of the two parties, and we've got to get outside of partyism in general. They're not gravitating towards third parties. They're not running to join the Libertarian Party or the Green Party or the Constitution Party and that sort of thing. Though I think there's many independent-minded and good-spirited people in those parties, that's not where the majority of the American people are going. They're going to new forms of political association, new forms of political expression, new kinds of political coalitions that allow independents and all Americans to give voice to the things that we're concerned about and to be able to have an impact in a positive way. I think one of the reasons that McCain has slipped so dramatically among independents in the last 3 weeks is it's partly a function of what's going on with the economy. It's partly a function of voters getting to know Barack Obama better and establishing a level of trust with him and the policies that he's advocating. But I also think that the negative campaigning that he and Sarah Palin were, conducting on the campaign trail, I think a lot of voters and a lot of independents wanted to say, wait a second, we're not going down that road. We're perfectly willing to listen to policy directions, proposals that you want to make, how you want to handle the economy, how you want to handle the international situation, how you want to handle jobs and health care and taxes and all of that. But we're really not willing to go along with this kind of negative campaigning because it is so corrosive to the political process. And I think that, and in some ways, McCain, I think, was a victim of the very structure of the American political system. He's down in the polls. He needs to get aggressive. That's what everybody says. That's the way it works. He gets aggressive, but the aggressiveness has a certain quality and a character to it that the American people are just saying, wait a second, we just don't want to go there. And I think independence had a really big effect on the culture. We talk about wanting to change the culture of politics in America. That's very fundamental to what the independent movement is about. Well, I think that this is maybe a moment where we can say, well, we have changed the culture of politics in America. Things are starting to look different. Now, how does that happen? Well, it happens through a lot of complicated ways, but one of the main ways that it happens is that independents are getting organized on the ground. They are building organizations on the ground. They are bringing new people and new voices and a new way of participating in the political process into being. That's where the political culture changes. It doesn't change up at the top. You see reverberations of the change going on at the top. In some ways, that's where it's easiest to see because the polls and the candidates and, and all of that. What's going on the ground in South Dakota or in Idaho or in Florida or in Texas or in Massachusetts or New Jersey. Not that easy to see. But it is going on. It is going on, and independents are the ones who are making it happen. Another thing I think that independents taught Obama about this season is the emergence of a new phenomenon in black politics, which is the rise of the black independent. The number of African Americans who now self-identify as independents is something in the neighborhood of 25 to 30%. Gets higher as you move to younger voters. But this identification as independents has become so strong among black voters that it showed up in exit polling for the very first time ever in the history of exit polling during the presidential season. And I would estimate, based on the numbers that I've seen, that in some states as much as 10% of Obama's African American vote came from African Americans who would describe themselves now as independents rather than Democrats. And I think that that phenomenon, the rise of the black independent and its partnership with white independents, is a very, very interesting and important phenomenon that is just starting to surface in American politics today. And somebody who's written about this in some detail and in a way which is extremely interesting and very, very well researched is a good friend by the name of Omar Ali, who's written a book called In the Balance of Power, published by Ohio University Press. It's just very recently out, and I highly recommend people reading it. I actually did an interview with Dr. Ali recently, which you can listen to on the website, independentvoting.org. It'll give you a little bit more of a flavor of where he goes. But he looks at the history of this trend over the entire course of American political life since the days of the Revolution and up to today, and also talks specifically about the emergence of the Black and Independent Alliance as a new form in American political life, a new coalition. So I highly recommend this, and I think people would really, really love it, and you will also see some of yourselves in the book too, since he chronicles much of the work that the contemporary independent political movement has done. And so it's a great read, really a great read.